Okay, we're going to show you how to run Linux on your Samsung Dex desktop. I'm using a Samsung Galaxy Note 9 with Android 10. It's an old 5-year-old phone, but it still has an 8-core octa-core Snapdragon processor, and it can run several OSs at once. These operating systems are a little bit lighter because they're designed to run on the ARM processors instead of x86 like Intel and AMD. So keep that in mind. But they still are fully functional, full desktop operating systems. But you have to have Termux, obviously. The Termux needs to be downloaded from F-Droid and not the Play Store. Won't work. The Play Store version will not. It has something to do with the repositories. It just won't work. So download F-Droid from the Play Store. Give it all the permissions it needs. If it asks for them, say yes. Termux. You're going to download the the terminal emulator with packages. I also download the API because that'll come in handy later for other stuff once you start getting busy with this. What you're going to do, I have this Galaxy Note 9 hooked up to my monitor, and I have a USB. It's like a Dex adapter, but it's just a generic USB to HDMI that has USB out and USB-C power in. The USB out goes to a 9-port hub so that I can have all my peripherals. I have a 6-in-1 card reader, a wired mouse, wired keyboard. I have a wireless mouse and a wireless keyboard. They work Bluetooth to the phone. The reason I got both keyboards is the Logitech I have is really cool, but it doesn't have all of the buttons you would think a fully desktop keyboard has. So I have a Lenovo full keyboard also that has some buttons that Logitech doesn't have. I love the Logitech. And I got USB thumb drives in there. I got my 2 terabyte passport hooked to that hub. The phone's 256 gigs. It has a 128-bit SD card in it. It might be 64-bit. Might be 64 gigs. I think it's 128, but either way, don't matter. I have 9 cloud accounts on here and 3.8 gigs of local storage. But let's get on to installing Linux. Termux is the application that does it. You can go in here, pick your Andronics. You want to download that. Go in here and pick whichever one you want. There's a bunch. Debian, Ubuntu, Arch, Alpine, Fedora, Void, Alp. All of them. And once you select one, I'll select Debian. That's what I got going right now. Desktop environment. I pick XFCE4 because it's the best out of all of them. You can also pick these two. You can see that they recommend XFCE4, but you do what you like. You can also pick a Windows manager like OpenBox. I have installed one like that before, but Awesome is pretty cool, but I just don't even do it. I just go with the regular DE. So select that, select XFC. You're going to see that it gives you this prompt. That means it's copied all of everything onto your keyboard. Clipboard. Oops, you're going to left click, not right click. You're going to left click and paste. Boom, there's all the code. It'll go for about 10 minutes. You'll have to type in a password, select your time zone, your language, all that. You'll have to, it'll ask if you want a read-only password, select no. And it'll do everything on its own. You'll have installed Andronics I showed you, but there's also something called Linux, and it has some a little bit more obscure, like Parrot. It also has CentOS in here, but I'm not seeing it right now because I've actually installed CentOS on here. I don't know. I don't see it anywhere. They may have removed it. They may have removed CentOS, but it used to be on here. I just re-downloaded it, so maybe they don't carry it anymore. But either way, let's get to it. Operating system's installed. Now to load it up, you're gonna hit VNC localhost. Actually, let's do it. Let's actually do it. I'm gonna kill the operating system. You can tell, boom. There's nothing running in the VNC. Shut that out. You can look at here and see everything you got loaded. It's good to keep all this stuff. Come down here and defrag the memory every once in a while too. Probably doesn't hurt. Take gigabyte of memory back. Alright, so since I killed it, we're gonna boot it up. Localhost, VNC server localhost. You're gonna export this to display one. And you're going to start the desktop environment, which is XFCE. The command is start XFCE4. Boom. You're going to get some warnings. It's no big deal. It's just because it's going over our VNC router. Minimize that. Now you're going to open up multi-VNC. This can be downloaded from the Play Store or F-Droid. I already have these bookmarks here that store everything, but if you don't, it's going to be 127.0.0.1 for the IP address and 5900. Now when I run Kali Linux, I use port 5901. I'm running them both at the same time or whatever. And if you don't have a bookmark like I got, you have to put your password in there and hit connect, and bam. So here's a bam. The terminal will be open when you boot it. Previously it would boot into the wrong resolution, and yours may do that too. Somehow I got an update or something, and now it auto detects my monitor. I don't have to do it anymore. But if you did have to do it, you would just go to any terminal and you would xrender size 1920 x 1080, and boom. I'm not going to do it because I'm already at the right resolution. And you got full Linux running. That's how fast it works. That install process I showed you takes about 7, 8, 10 minutes, depending on a few things. But everything works snappy. I'm in the basement, and I'm pretty far from my router, but you can even hook this up Ethernet if you buy one of those fancy Samsung Dex adapters. I just have a cheap brand name USB to HDMI, but it works perfectly, and everything works fine. GIMP. GIMP's a big program. It takes a second to load, but free. Price is Right with GIMP. Go in there and select you a beautiful picture. It's going to convert it from whatever to RGB or whatever it does, and you're on your way with editing. XFC terminal. There's your terminal. Let's see what the file system looks like. CD storage, LSA, always LSA. I don't know why, but you can see there's my external hard drive. That's the thumb drive, and I believe that's the USB card reader. that has compact flash, memory stick, SD, MicroSD. It has, what else does it have? Memory stick. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's only, I'm sorry, it's a 5-in-1. But it's also got one called TF, and I don't even remember what that is. If anybody knows what TF is for a card reader, leave it down in the comments, please. I can't remember. But it's cool to have all that. Also, the phone has 256 gigabytes of internal storage. I have a 2 terabyte hard drive hooked to it. And I have an internal, Linux is reading it as external because we're not an Android, but it's actually an internal SD card. And I believe it's 128 gigs, but it could be 64. I can't remember. I have several of them. I have a whole box of them. I have unlimited storage. I have probably 50 USB thumb drives and 50 SD cards and about 10 compact flash cards. So there's unlimited amounts of storage. I have 10 cloud accounts on here probably, or at least 8. So go back, print your working directory. That's what your path looks like. Close that out. You go right back to Samsung Dex, which is Android, and you have all these apps. It doesn't show all of them here. Some of them are in folders. Some of them you would search for, but they all work. They all work in Dex. Some of them work a little bit different because they're designed only to be touchscreen. Sketchbook doesn't work all that great because it's meant to be used with your S Pen that comes with your Note, but you can still use it in here. It's a little bit tricky, but you can still do it. Now, one program that will not run in here is Google Earth. It is specifically meant for touchscreens, and it just absolutely won't run. But you can still run Google Maps. Now, I'm not in Linux here. I'm in Android. This is Louisville, Kentucky, South Side. I mean, it is Linux because Android is a Linux operating system, but it's heavily modified. So everything works fine. This is my Python programming environment. Let's see if we can run a video game that I wrote. There's those Python scripts, right? You can see I used ChatGPT to help me a little bit because when I wrote this game, it kept crashing after I hit the keyboard button or the spacebar button 5 times. So there was some kind of loop in there that was not correct. And I asked ChatGPT to correct the code, and it did. It took a minute. I had to ask it a few different ways, but it corrected whatever problem was causing the game to crash. And before you know it, I got my own video game that I designed myself. I'm using the Pygame option in Python. It's brilliant. It provides all the physics, so you don't have to write all that low-level code. You still have to write a shitload of code, so don't think that's not going to happen. And I'm a novice programmer. I'm new to it. I've been in computers for 20-something years, but as far as programming, I can really only do some HTML and some Python and maybe a little bit of C, but it requires a lot of help for me. I haven't really devoted the time to doing it. So anyway, that's it. You can see written and coded by Jeff Dennis. This is all me, and if I can do it, anybody can do it, because I don't have that much formal training in any of this shit. I mean, I used Windows for the first 15 years of my life. So then I got into Linux. With Ubuntu because it's got such a good GUI. But that's it. Linux running on a 5-year-old broken phone. All made possible by Termux, Multi VNC, and Dex. And if you just wanted to install it on your phone regularly, you can do it and just have a touch screen, and you have this giant desktop operating system on your phone that won't do much for you, because this is going to look about 1/16 of the size. And that, I don't believe the S Pen works with it because this is Linux. But show you how I'll do it here. There's all your did I already show you all this? I think I did. Either way, there's all your storage. But and there's your path. There's that. You can run these, not run them necessarily, but anything that's running in Dex can be brought to the top of Linux. That's a bad example. Let's bring Termux up. So you're in Linux, and you can still do Termux stuff with your Linux right there in the background. To toggle back and forth, just hit this multi-VNC button. Both operating systems run fast as hell. You can't tell that it's a phone running it. You just think it was a laptop. But what else? Let's see. You need to have a Samsung phone to do it this way. There are other phones that might be able to cast the screen onto something wirelessly, but only Samsung has Dex. Dex is absolutely one of the coolest things that Samsung has ever come up with. And you can see your notifications for Android here. And that works just fine. And screenshot, but you can do that from the keyboard. Volume is handled through Android, but you can also adjust it through pulse media volume control. I keep the source side turned up to 100, and then I adjust the volume from Android, which ultimately handles it. And let's go back to Dex. Any questions, leave them down there in the comments and I'll answer them. Trying to give you all the information you need to run Linux on here without leaving any of it out. But if I did leave anything out, write a question in the comments. I will answer it. I'll check it. It's cool. This Linux operating system, I have all kinds of fun with it. I write Python stuff in it. You can write Python in here too, but with PyDroid. But it's just an awesome operating system. This is so snappy. It's just, snappy as hell. I got several browsers. It's almost like having Windows or Mac, but it's free, and you're running it on an old phone that you were probably gonna throw away or turn in for recycling anyway. Like I said, it's a Samsung Galaxy Note 9 with Samsung Dex. Let me see if I can get that info up on here. This is how you toggle off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all that. It's got your devices. You go into settings. It has every Android setting. Looks like I got developer options turned on. And it's got all kinds of options. I usually leave most of that alone. Got about 10 browsers on here. This program helps mount your Western Digital hard drive in Android, so you don't have to do it that way, but you can see right there, Western Digital. It's a 2 terabyte hard drive that's about half full. You got this thumb drive. This is the internal storage. You got the SD card. It can all be accessed from My Files, just like on your phone. This would be, you can see all you can see all the USB devices. They're mounted in here. Boom, boom, boom. This is my SD card, I think. Yeah, this is the internal SD card. When you're in Linux, it'll show up as external because it's mounted in this operating system. There's all kinds of stuff stored in all of these. I'm a photographer, so a lot of real high resolution pictures and 4K video. So I have to have all this storage. It's about 3.8 gigabytes storage. And then you have unlimited amounts of SD cards and compact flash cards and cloud drives and Dropbox and all that. So, and everything's automatically backed up. Every time I take a picture, it automatically goes to the cloud through Photos. Some of my personal stuff. I don't want to show you that too long. I get myself in trouble. I hope you enjoyed this Linux tutorial, because this is the end of the video and I'm about to disappear. Goodbye.